Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Mixed reactions over government's plan to increase the income tax threshold for pay-as-you-earn workers. Stern warning to motorists on the campaign trail ahead of the local government election. And later in sports, Leon Bailey signs extension with Aston Villa. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kerry-Ann Simpson. Here are the details. More questions this afternoon about plans to increase the income tax threshold for pay-as-you-earn workers. Political commentators have been weighing in on the issue amid calls for Prime Minister Andrew Holness to be more specific. The details in this report.
On Saturday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness told party supporters in Trelawney that the government plans to increase the income tax threshold, but there's still no timeline on the announcement for that planned adjustment. This has caused political commentator Lloyd B. Smith to question if the proposal could be an election ploy.
I think the timing would suggest that it is an election vote-grabbing exercise, which is unfortunate because the fact that the Prime Minister was not able to give a timeline makes it just a promise, and a promise is oftentimes a comfort to a fool. If he had given a specific timeline and explained the necessary architecture through which it would be done, then I think one would have been more impressed. But just to say it's going to happen, we know that politicians always make promises that take long to happen or never happen at all. And this one seems to fall into either of those categories.
Meanwhile, another political commentator, Dr. Paul Ashley, is concerned that the reduction in the general consumption tax would impact more Jamaicans than the proposed increase in the income tax threshold. He's also questioning how the government would regain revenue lost through an increase in the income tax threshold.
If the income tax threshold moves, you don't pay income tax, but how will GCT remain the same? Could you have a better situation that you decrease the GCT to 10% instead of the 15%? So the fact is that the government won't lose revenue because the services provided by government might move up. You can have licenses moving up. You can have everything that government charges you for move up. And you can have GCT moving up too. The issue is that it seems very good if you get a break. But what about the other increases in government providing services? That's the critical issue.
Mr. Ashley says consumers need a reprieve amid increasing costs of goods and services. Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
In the meantime, the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions has welcomed the government's commitment to raise the income tax threshold for pay-as-you-earn workers from the existing $1.5 million.
President of the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, JCTU, St. Patrice Ennis, says the proposed raise in the income tax threshold for pay-as-you-earned workers should be implemented at the soonest. He says the JCTU and individual member unions had lobbied the Minister of Finance for the increase in income tax threshold during discussions on the new public sector compensation scheme.
As you will recall, many salaries were adjusted as a result of the compensation review as persons' allowances were absorbed into their wage, into their basic salaries. And so that would have pushed them above the 1.5. And we had long advocated to the Minister of Finance in our negotiations, individual unions as well as the JCTU, that should have been addressed. At the time, the government wasn't giving consideration to such an issue. Over time, their position had softened, and I'm glad to now hear that the Prime Minister has indicated that he is of the view that this should be considered favorably.
Mr. Ennis declined to give a proposed amount for the movement in the income tax threshold, but said it should be in line with inflation.
The JCTU had not advocated a particular position because we didn't want anybody to suffer any loss. So we would have calculated what it was at the time, and so the relevant adjustment with inflation, it would be commensurate with that. So That is where our mindset was, that there would be no loss advantage with respect to those who were protected, and that is what we would be guided by.
Speaking in Trelawney on the weekend, Jamaica Labour Party leader Andrew Holness told supporters his administration would deliver the threshold increase. Raquel Porter, TVJ News.
The Hellshire Division in St. Catherine is one of the seats to watch in the local government elections, as the Jamaica Labour Party believes it will take over the division. However, the sitting councillor and People's National Party candidate told TVJ News that he's ready to resign if he doesn't receive at least 80% of the votes. Kelisha Williams has that story.
Since Portmore gained municipality status in 2003, the Jamaica Labour Party has never won the Hellshire Division in the local government election. In 2003, the JLP got 575 votes to the People's National Party's 874. In 2007, the JLP received 616 votes, the PNP 1,103 votes. In 2012, the margin increased for the PNP. The JLP got 406 votes to the PNP's 1,848. In the last election in 2016, things improved for the JLP, but it was still a big loss. The party received 579 votes to the PNP's 1,488 votes. Van Rick Preddy won the division for the PNP in 2016, and now he has this message.
I can boldly tell you, if I don't get over 80 and over percent of the vote, I'm gonna resign.
Why is that?
Because I do the job. My first election, I've gotten 70.1% of the votes, and I was a newbie. And I do a lot of work since. If I want one single vote to win, and somebody say, buy me a water, and I vote for you, I'm gonna lose. Because I'm not gonna buy a vote to win. If I have to buy a vote to win, I don't deserve to be a councillor after 7 years.
However, his counterpart, Richard Mendez, stressed that based on his research so far, there is no way Mr. Preddy will receive 80% of the votes for the division.
That will never happen on the face of God earth. I'm not deterred. I see the numbers, the numbers from 2016. I speak to people. I understand what effort was made to generate that results. Today, and during my tenure, I see marked more vigorous, knowledgeable, inspired work done compared back then. It is like comparing chalk and cheese. No, back to that. So it's far better now in terms of the effort that was made, and definitely I believe it will deliver the municipal council in the hands of the Jamaica Labour Party.
Kelisha Williams, TVJ News.
Transport Minister Darrell Vaz is making an appeal to supporters of both political parties as they gear up for the February 26 local government election. Mr. Vaz says he has been recording a number of unfortunate incidents taking place across the country. Some have resulted in serious consequences which he believes could have been avoided. He is therefore urging persons to campaign responsibly and safely.
Enthusiasm in supporting your party and candidates. I want all of you on both sides to enjoy the festivities associated with a hopefully peaceful campaign. But most of all, I want you to be safe. I'm therefore appealing to everyone to consider safety when riding vehicles in motorcades. Please do not hang out any part of your body through windows or doors. We already saw what took place in St. Thomas with an unfortunate incident. And even in Portland, I witnessed the same on nomination day. It is imperative that you take your safety in your own hands.
In other news, an additional 33 vehicles are expected in the island this year to help in the fight against predial larceny. That's according to Agriculture Minister Floyd Green, who was speaking at a function in St. Elizabeth recently. The vehicles are courtesy of the government of Japan. Mr. Green says this is part of the upgrade of the predial larceny branch in the ministry.
The police and our predial larceny unit went on to capture a Prada last one is a thief. They caught this one with potato and carrot. But when they checked it, he was father to the son that they caught with goats last week. And they realized it's a generation of thieves. But what was the nice part about the article is that the man they caught with the goat, and let me step back, what you find, you may not always catch people in the act, but we have to make it harder to transport stolen items and for them to find a market. So when you hold them on the road.
Meanwhile, Mr. Green is reminding perennial thieves about the amendment to the Agriculture Produce Act, which is now law.
Last year, and they had charged him. When he went to court, if he had pleaded guilty, the maximum fine would have been $250,000. They hold him this year. So if he plead guilty, the maximum fine is $3 million.
It's now time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of the Force Development and Logistics portfolio, Dr. Kevin Blake, is underscoring the profound evolution underway in the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF. Speaking at the St. Thomas Division Annual Dinner and Award Ceremony recently, Dr. Blake says the use of technology has come a far way in helping the JCF in its fight against crime. He also spoke about the force obtaining the ISO 9001 certification at 14 JCF sites.
May, where we were onboarding an additional 7 sites, 7 primary sites. When I say a primary sites, that is the point at which service is delivered, like our police stations. So like Matilda's Corner, Duane Park, these stations are ISO 9001 certified. And we will now move our numbers from 14 to 21 because I have no doubt whatsoever that we will be successful in all 7 of them.
Dr. Blake says it doesn't stop there as the improvements continue in other areas.
Our journey of modernization also saw great strides being made towards developing, procuring, and onboarding the most advanced technological infrastructure and tools. And we have successfully undertaken and executed more than 30 major technological projects that are aimed at significantly improving our infrastructure, fully automating our business processes, improving our cybersecurity posture, and ensuring effective staff development.
It's time now for the Business Minute.
Lasco Financial Services is reporting increased profit for its third quarter ended December. At the end of the 3 months, the company made $36.3 million after tax. That's up from $30.6 million made for the similar period in 2022. Lasco Financial Services says the performance brings the 9-month profit to $92.3 million. This was down from the $187.3 million in the previous year. The company says these results reflect new costs which have been introduced as it invests to develop its digital financial services. Lasco Financial Services consolidated income came to $557.4 million for the third quarter. This represents a 2.5% decrease or $14.3 million when compared to the corresponding 2022-2023 third quarter. Further afield, technology company Meta is making a change to what political content you'll see on social media platforms. Instagram will stop recommending political content from accounts you don't follow. Friday, the popular photo and video app said this will also apply to Threads. Both apps will add a setting to let users opt in to political content recommendations. Customization tools will also be rolled out on Facebook at a later date. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shaneberg.
Thank you, Al Shane. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the Seismic Research Center, SRC, at the University of the West Indies in Grenada has advised the National Disaster Management Agency of increased seismic activity at the Kikimjeni submarine volcano on the island. SRC says the latest seismic activity measured at 3.3 on Saturday, with reports of the events being felt in the north of Grenada. The alert level for Kikumjeni remains at yellow. This means that the volcano is restless and seismicity or fumarolic activity are above the historic level. It also means that all marine interests should maintain the exclusion zone of 1.5 kilometers. And U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has transferred his duties to Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks after he was admitted to hospital for an emergent bladder issue. In a statement on Sunday, the Pentagon said it is unclear how long he will remain in hospital. Now, Mr. Austin was recently under scrutiny for failing to disclose his prostate cancer diagnosis and hospital stays in December and January. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Amoy Harriet.
Thank you, Amoy. We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports with Jordan Ford.